Our next guest today is Lynn Spalding, who recently received the Alumni of the Year Award from St. Dominic School.
Alumnus of the Year.
What did I say?
Alumni. Well, I think
I'm getting
yeah.
my Alumnus of the Year Award.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I want to welcome you, Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I know you've probably been on Channel 6 before. I don't know, Central Kentucky TV.
Yeah, but I'm denying all of that stuff that was on there.
Whatever was said before, huh?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And whatever pictures you've got there, they're fabrications.
Well, I just want to congratulate you on that award.
Well, thank you.
And I want to hear a little bit about it and why you received that award.
Well, I guess the primary reason that I got that award was the fact of being involved a lot with both the church, St. Dominic's Church, and also the school. When we were rehabilitating it all, and fixing it up and so forth, and putting in the new gym, which I was, my partner in that whole venture right there was Bob Goodlett, who's right there with me every step of the way and everything like that. And he deserves at least 50% of the credit, if not more. So, but I learned in New York, if there's any credit to be handed out, grab it quick. You can explain later.
Well, that is a beautiful gym,
yeah.
And all-purpose building, and it was a wonderful thing that we added, and we wanted the gym for a long time. Well, my children
yes.
attended there, and their father attended there, and of course you attended there.
I did, and in fact I was the first coach of the St. Dominic's grade school basketball team. And we went out to St. Rose for all of our practice sessions, and most of our games, our quote home games, were at St. Rose, and virtually every other game was someplace else that had something other than a dirt floor, to play on. So I can really appreciate what a great thing it is as far as the kids are concerned.
Yeah.
Because it was there was a lot of difficulty associated with that, and you don't have the greatest self-esteem when you're playing somebody else and you don't have a gym, and the others all have a gym.
Right.
So that was there was plenty of incentive there for us to do something along that line, and we decided, Bob and I did, that as long as we had gone this far with the church rehabilitation and some work at the school, that why not go ahead and push it further and put that all-purpose building in there and do it right. Do it, make it be something that we would really be proud of, and that just as importantly, all of the kids going to school there would be proud of. So that event right there. Then we did Susan gets some credit for this right here, which I'm taking credit for too. But when we were at an event in Louisville, we had the opportunity to meet with the chairman of Alltech and his wife, and they had been putting science labs, very nice science labs, in many of the schools in Lexington, the Catholic schools there. So we had a captive audience right there. I was on one side of her and Susan was on the other. And we, before that evening was out, we had talked her into agreeing to put that science lab in, which we've got, and it's a very, very nice one too.
Very nice.
Yeah. Then
yes.
once
I
again,
think they gave what, 50,000?
100,000.
100,000, and we had to match.
Well, we had to come up with probably altogether maybe $200,000 to do all of the rehabilitation plus a few other things around there. But putting those things in, you know, you have to rewire a lot of the building, and so we did. But we've got a beautiful science lab, something to really be proud of there.
Right, right.
And we're getting a new science teacher who is very deep in her knowledge of science and enthusiastic in teaching it, and that's going to help us out quite a lot.
Now, who's that, Lynn?
Well, this is, I don't even know. They're right in the very final stages of that, and so there is a cone of silence over that right at the present time until they get it done. But this is something we're going to be also extremely proud of, and we're going to turn out a lot more kids who actually have an interest in math, because science is one of the ways in which you really use some of that math that you run into in high school, and that most high school kids think that that's something the school system put in to oppress the kids, you know. In point of fact, it has a very useful purpose.
Yes.
And that is something we're really proud of.
Right, right. Well, and yes, we need our kids need a good foundation in math and science, particularly today, because that's where all the jobs are, and the good jobs.
And it's going to be much more that way in the future, and some magnificent career opportunities too, of things that you can do that you could really be excited about. The contribution that you're making to society too. I mean, kids are. Right. And so it is just a wonderful opportunity and not to be passed up. But if you haven't gotten that, you haven't gotten yourself up to a decent level in math by the end of your sophomore year, you have a very, very low probability of ever going much further.
Right.
So that's why it's important to start in about the 6th grade. Once you've learned reading, writing, add, subtract, multiply, and divide, now you begin to pull things together and start working on algebra and some things along that line in the 6th grade.
Right.
And those are the tools, the 4 tools that you now use the rest of your life.
Well, you've been very active with that, Lynn, in seeing that our kids are getting a good education at St. Dominic, and I really appreciate that. And of course you attended school there, and then I guess you went to Springfield High School.
Springfield High School, that's right, and had the blessing of having a wonderful math teacher there, Mrs. Mays, Mrs. Catherine Mays. Terrific teachers. In fact, I was blessed with 3 or 4 outstanding teachers in high school. The McCabe brothers, J.T. McCabe and J. McCabe, as well.
Who later became superintendent, I guess. Was that correct?
Well, no, actually he left when his daughter was born, because he went to work, I think, with the bank, with the State Bank, I believe, at that time.
And then after your education at Springfield High, what year did you graduate Springfield High?
In 1953.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you left to go to college?
Yeah, I did, on a basketball scholarship. I was going to be Pat Summerall, the great announcer. Pat Summerall, before Pat Summerall was Pat Summerall. So I was, and what happened was that at the end of my freshman year, everything was going great there, and then I tore my ACL.
And where was this?
This was at Xavier University in Cincinnati.
Okay.
And
you tore your ACL?
ACL and meniscus. And so that was sort of like a death sentence as far as your career was concerned. There wasn't much that they could do for you. So that by way of rehabilitating you now, that they can now. So then I wound up going into the Army, and
did you graduate Xavier first, or
no? I went directly into. I didn't know what I wanted to do at that time. Suddenly, my career, my
your
Pat Summerall
basketball,
career,
yeah,
that
was
now
over.
over with. Yeah, that's right. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so then I went into the Army, and when I came out of the Army, I was blessed to be in an intelligence unit where I had a couple or three really great role models, 2 West Pointers and a Texas A&M, a guy that were just outstanding individuals, and I thought, that's what I'd like to be like them. Not necessarily a military career, but get myself a really good college education, a first-class college education, and then really do something else with my life. And
So you joined the Army, and where did you serve?
I served in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would have been in what year?
54 to 56.
Okay.
Yeah.
And well, thank you for your service to our country, since we've just celebrated Memorial Day,
Yes.
and we had Billy Waters on a little while ago talking about his service in Korea, and now you, and then we're going to have Bob Goodlett. So
Yeah.
and he was in the service.
Yeah.
So
I
thank you.
didn't have any bullets flying in my direction by any means.
Lucky for
yeah,
you.
yeah,
But that's
yeah.
something you never know.
Well,
In
you
Billy's
never know.
case, he joined, and then the guard or the reserve unit,
Yeah.
and then
National Guard unit.
it went active.
Yeah, it went active.
Yeah.
I remember that when that happened too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but at any rate, I came out of there and I went to college, and then I was determined to make up for what I didn't get that wasn't transferable. And so I made up my mind that I was going to use the GI Bill, 4 years worth of GI Bill, to get through college, then undergraduate school at Bellarmine in 3 years, and also get through graduate school in 1 year, which normally takes 2 years. It wasn't
You
very
wanted to
smart.
cram all that in because of you had the GI Bill for those.
Yeah, and I wanted to stretch that, and it wasn't very smart because you can do that if you don't need to sleep. You know, and so I did not get many hours of sleep at all, and I was working around the clock, because you have to get your grades up high enough so that when you come out of undergraduate school, you get accepted into graduate school. And I did. I got good grades there, and I did get a fellowship into graduate school, and so in finance, and that became my career, and it was one of God's great blessings. Really was, because it was the perfect career for me, because I tend to be a numbers guy anyway, and so it was just quite suitable for me, and I had the blessing of a couple of mentors. I already mentioned the two that or three that I had when I was in the Army in Germany, and also a fellow from right here in Springfield, Lemuel Boulware, who is
And what was the last name?
Boulware, Boulware. I did not know that name at all, but Bet Jeffries Ward, this is her uncle,
Okay.
who came out of Springfield, also a Springfield High School graduate, and had an excellent career. He was at that time retiring from General Electric, and he was settling his mother's estate, I think it was, at that time, and he saw some little thing about me in some old Springfield Suns that were laying around there, and the house there, and so called my dad up and said that he saw where I'd gotten a fellowship to graduate school, and so wanted to know if I was going to be around. He'd like to talk to me, and that was the only weekend in probably in my graduate school that I was ever at home. So I said, "Who is Lemuel Boulware? Never heard that name." My dad never raised his voice, but he did that time. He said, "Arguably, he's the most successful person that ever came out of Springfield," which, on learning a lot more about him, that's true. And you'd be best to get up there right now and talk to him. Okay, I'm going. best thing that ever happened to me, because he said, you know, you're getting a good career. Have you ever thought about the major leagues? And I said, the major leagues? That meant baseball to me. And he said, well, there are the major leagues in the investment world too. They're in Chicago and New York. And so that's, you know, you maybe ought to think about that. At that time, I already had a job offer from Citizens Fidelity Bank in Louisville, and I mentioned to him that's where I was going. He said, well, you obviously you can do what you want to do, but at some point in your career, son, I promise you, you will think back on this time and you will say, I wonder if I could have made it in the major leagues. So I decided that's all the challenge I need. I'm going to call Mr. Lee Miller down at Citizens Fidelity and tell him I've decided to go to Chicago rather than Louisville. He said, so he said, well, okay, if that doesn't work out for you, come on back, you'll have a job right here in Louisville. And it all did work out very nicely.
So you just went to Chicago after you got your master's?
Yes, after I got my master's in finance, and then from there on to New York with Chase Manhattan Bank at that time. And then right after that, Chase bought J.P. Morgan, and we decided to put all the investment operation into J.P. Morgan and all the banking operation into Chase, and I was the person that was selected to run the investment operation. And so that's what I did, and then I stayed there on as a director of the Chase Investment Asset Management Organization for a long time, up until I was 78 years old. And Jamie Dimon, who was the CEO at Chase at the time, said, you know, you have grossly overstayed the mandatory retirement time. I think it's time that you hang up your spurs. And I said, fine, I'm happy to do that. And because it was between, traveling through from here back and forth to New York all the time.
Uh-huh.
And
so you were traveling here for,
I was living here then at that time.
Oh, okay, after you had come back here.
Yeah, I even have a pen that says J.P. Morgan Chase, Springfield, Kentucky on it.
Ah.
Because they were so convinced when I said I was leaving to come down to Kentucky to pay back for all the good things that good Lord let happen to Susan and myself, career-wise and health-wise and everything else. And but they just would not believe that I would ever go down here. They said, you'll be back. And so they said, what we'll do is set you up an operation there at your house. We'll get you the computers and the printers and all the equipment that you need right there in your house. And then when you decide to come back, you get to keep the equipment right there, but you'll be back here in New York. And
so,
we've got a spot for you.
So when was that you came here, back here?
In 1997, basically end of the year 1996, so 97.
And I got a nice little, I didn't know this, but I had a little conversation with Susan the other night, and we talked about, what brought you back here. And one of the things, Susan, not even being from here, from Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, that's right.
When you all would come here to visit, and how much, and I guess you visited your father and mother here, I don't know.
Yeah, sure, that's exactly what we were doing.
If you have other relatives here.
We would come back on some weekends and things like that, just every now and then when we could shake loose, And then my dad died, and then, so then we were taking care of Mom from a distance.
And she was here.
Then she was here.
Okay,
she was here for 9 years after he died.
After your dad died.
Yeah, yeah.
And your dad was Doctor.
Dentists here. He and my Uncle Joe were dentists here in Springfield for 52 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So yes, that's exactly right. And so we did. And
your dad died what year?
well, my dad died in July the 18th of 1983.
And then your mom continued to live here.
Died, yes,
Another
in February of 1992.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we moved here, and
that was in what year did you say you moved here?
Moved here basically at the end of '96.
Okay.
Yeah, and didn't know what, but we knew we didn't come down here to retire, and we don't believe in retirement. We don't. My dad always said the day you retire is your first step toward the grave. So I've sort of kept that up, and fortunately I've had good health,
Yeah.
you know. So and this still works, and so I've been involved with on the financial side with St. Catherine's and very importantly with Bellarmine,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things down there with them too, and a couple of other outfits too.
Oh, you've stayed
Yeah.
very, and I didn't I had forgotten that once you came back here that you continued to work for
J.P. Morgan
J.P.
Chase
Morgan
in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From New York for how long did you do that then after you came back?
Geez, let's see, 96, 15 years.
Well, I knew it was at least 10.
Yeah, it was
and I
15
can remember
years.
you flying back and forth some.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
They would send a car to pick me up my drive at the house, and we would drive up to Cincinnati because there was no other flight that had first class seating, and I absolutely need first class seating. I cannot fit in coach at all. Just cannot fit at all. And so that was always in my contracts wherever I went to work, that I fly first class. Not, because of the way they treat you in first class, but because that's the only place that I can sit down. And so